I'm Kee Marcello. I'm part of Rock Me Vienna in March and April 2026. Don't miss this.
Kee, it's so exciting for us to have you in Vienna as a star. Why did you accept the invitation?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great thing you're doing right here. And also, I think it's time that somebody does this. I did similar stuff in the past, but it's been like 8, 10 years ago somebody did it on a big scale like this. And I know that nowadays, I mean, the difference between guitar players today and when I started playing guitar is that all the assets are online. You can get all the tutorials you can imagine online for free. There's a lot of people at home playing the guitar, but there's a different story to try to get away from the computer screens and get out and listen to real music. Real players play for real. And that's what Rock Me Vienna is about, the real thing. So I hope you can attract a lot of those people that just stay at home in front of their screens to get out of there and get real.
In getting real instead of teaching yourself online, what do you think is the biggest difference? What more can you convey in working with people offline?
Yeah, I mean, the meeting is like the most amazing thing. I mean, you have Andy Timmons there. He can tell you that, you know, when I was in New York and I watched this band play live actually, and we decided to jam the day after at my hotel room. Just the two of us and two guitars and just, you know, jam it out, because that's how you learn. I did the same thing with Phil Collen and Def Leppard and Paul Gilbert and Mr. Big and tons of other guitar players. It's always a nice thing to get to jam together. You know, pick each other's brains, if you wish, you know, that's how you learn new stuff. And to miss out on that, that's such a big part of it. You can't miss out of that, because that's the real thing. That's when you really learn. I mean, you can learn alternate picking, legato, and all those techniques by watching tutorials, but you really need to meet people to feel the vibe of it all. That's when you can really get going on your own playing in a real way.
And what will be the things that you will teach the people at Rock Me Vienna?
I think, except obviously for the obvious things like different techniques that I use, everything from alternate picking, legato, sweep picking, and tapping and whatnot, and modes, obviously, playing over chord changes. I will try to get people turned on to playing melodies, because I'm really all about melodies. A song to me has to be like a song within the song. It has to deliver something new after the second chorus. Normally in a rock song or wherever the solo comes up, it has to deliver something new feeling wise. You know, it could be an extra melody, it could be taking you somewhere else. It just needs to add to the song. I hear too many songs where you hear a rocking song and all of a sudden there's a guitar solo because it's supposed to be a guitar solo there, and then it doesn't do its job properly. Try to think it through, you know, and have something to say when you play the solo. And I'm going to talk a lot about melodic solos and how to get there.
The song within a song. What do you think are the most important ingredients to create such a melody?
It really can be anything. It's as long as you have to try to put yourself in the listener's shoes and see how they will experience it, because it's really easy to make a really boring guitar solo. Just play really fast, that's super boring. But if you want to attract somebody's attention, you need something more. I saw this amazing thing in guitar players like 30 years ago. I was living in the Bahamas, and I got my guitar playing magazine every month. And it was an interview with Pat Martino, an amazing jazz guitar player. And he met Les Paul, taking a walk in New York. And, you know, I said, "Oh, Mr. Les Paul." And we came up to Les Paul and said, "Man, I'm a huge fan," because Les Paul pretty much was a pioneer when it comes to electric guitar playing in many ways. And Les Paul told him, "Pat, I know you. You're great. You sure play a lot of notes, but does your mother recognize you on the radio?" And that's really the question everybody ought to ask themselves. Does your mother recognize your playing? Because that's where it's at. If you have a tone that sticks out and and you get stuck in people's minds, then on the right track. It doesn't even have to be perfect technically. I mean, just look at so many guitar players out there. They get straight into my heart, but they maybe have to work on their techniques. But that's not really the point. The point is to move somebody.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I think this is also the way how I experience music. I cannot personally distinguish between what is perfectly super at the point, but I can feel what is reaching me and what is touching me.
Yeah. When it feels and when you get the goosebumps.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when everything is all right. And personally, I will listen so many hours. Jeff Beck doing Cause with Endless Lovers. I would choose that anytime over super fast A minor sweep picks, because I mean, if you heard them once, you probably heard them all. And there's just so many ways, only so many ways you can do them. But somebody really deliver a beautiful melody with all his heart or her heart is amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about the persons or about the artists that influenced you. I mean, obviously, Kee, you are a guitar influencer now since a couple of decades. But where do your idols come from?
Yeah, I mean, I started playing in the 70s, and those were the days of fusion. And I listened a lot to John McLaughlin and Al Di Meola and Alan Holdsworth. A lot of British guitar players, actually. Funnily, I mean, there was a lot of British guitar players around at that time, and mostly British, actually. And the ones I picked was like Ollie Halsall, John McLaughlin. Ollie Halsall, a forgotten one. He died so young. He was in a band called Pato, and also friends with Alan, actually. That's when I started to pick up the guitar, and I got a lot of ideas from these amazing performers. But everything starts somewhere. And of course, it started with Deep Purple and Richie Blackmore. And Carlos Santana and that amazing hit song they had, Black Magic Woman. Because when you start trying to play the guitar, you need something that you really can try to figure out what it is. You have to also understand this is way before we had any computers or anything. I mean, you listen to the radio and try to figure out what they were doing. And obviously, Smoke on the Water was one of the first riffs. It's like people in the 70s, you don't even have to be a guitar player. That riff is within our DNA, you know. But so Blackmore was important in the very beginning because he was writing very understandable riffs. Also Tony Iommi, obviously. But then as I went by and got more and more advanced, that's when I landed in John McLaughlin and Al Di Meola and those guys.
And then you developed your own unique sound and pioneered a lot with your music as well. When we talk about your music, now you're touring a lot with the Europe songs, maybe also it's the Europe albums which your fans desire. What would you say, what was the most important time of your music career?
That's a lot of them, you know, it's really hard to answer, but one pivotal point was probably when, prior to me being in Europe, I was in a band called Easy Action. And in 1983, our manager, Sanjay Tandon, he went to Midem, which used a music fair, a yearly music fair in Cannes, in France. And he went there with a newly recorded album and played it to Mr. Seymour Stein at Warner Brothers. He was a big shot in the Warner concern. And he had a label called Sired, and he got us signed. The band Easy Action got signed to Sire. And that was the very first Swedish rock band that got signed to a US major label. And it was a big deal. And it gave the band a lot of attention. It gave me as a producer and a guitar player a lot of credibility and therefore a lot of job opportunities. It also led to that I was asked to produce something called Swedish Metal Aid, which was a charity project, which we were inspired by Bob Geldof's Band Aid, obviously. And we talked to Bob a couple of times about doing this, and he thought it was a really good idea. And that's where I really worked for the first time with Joe Tempest, the lead singer of Europe. So obviously Europe was a big deal for everybody in the band because we became so big worldwide and toured over the world, did 3 beautiful world tours and all that. But if you go back, back. I mean, that career-defining moment was when I signed a contract with Easy Action to Warner Brothers in 1983. Because without that, none of the rest would have happened. Maybe.
Also talking about Europe, pretty much last album, Prisoners in Paradise, then when where you also played with Europe, and then you went on the world tour, was the last one. Why didn't the fans like it in the way they should?
First of all, Prisoners in Paradise sold 1 million copies really fast. I mean, it did really well. And now it's, yeah. And when we did that reunion gig in the year 2000, I mean, the Millennium New Year's Eve gig, it turned platinum in a lot of countries because it was just on the verge of becoming platinum. So it wasn't really a failure like a lot of people seem to think. And the record company, I have to say, Sony, they really wanted us to do a follow-up to Prisoners of Paradise, because when you sell 1 million units, it would be malpractice not to ask for a new album, because I mean, label, the only thing they care about is money, sales of money. That's the reality. So, but we felt in 1982, 93 that let's go on hiatus, because the world doesn't need a Europe album right now. With grunge, this is the era of grunge. It's not going to be like people are going to be screaming for a new Europe album. So let's take a break. That's how we figured we do it, you know. And grunge changed a lot for a lot of people in the melodic rock business. You know, ticket sales went down and all that. So we figured it's better to wait it out and see what happens. Everything is bound to happen. And grunge didn't last long at all. Didn't last 2 years even. And then it was over. I remember all the grunge bands a couple of years later, they didn't want to hear the term grunge anymore. No, we're not a grunge band. We're a hard rock band. So it was just a passing fancy, I guess. But always when you have a paradigm change of this sort, it changes the industry. And I'm actually old enough to remember when punk came, you know, in the late 70s, and that changed a lot. I mean, bands like Genesis, Yes, and all of those bands, they sort of disappeared off the scene for a while when Sex Pistols and The Damned and Clash, you know, came and changed the music business. It wasn't that unsimilar when grunge came. It changed a lot, but thank God it's gone.
Yeah, and then came the reunion of Europe, where you also played concerts with Europe.
One concert.
One concert. Why wasn't there a more stable reunion with Kee Marcello in the band?
The thing is, we did one reunion where everybody in the band, which means both guitar players, John Orm and me, and we did it was actually this crazy billionaire. He built a raft in the middle of Stockholm Stream in front of the royal castle, so that some 250,000, over 250,000 people saw the show on New Year's Eve 99 to 2000. And of course we ended with the final countdown, which was the entire idea. I mean, and it was great. So we played the final countdown and ended right before the new millennia started. And that's when the talks started about the band together again, because we didn't do anything from 92 until this gig. That was the first gig we did since 92. But we never were able to agree on which way to go. And like I said, I'm a melody guy, and let's just say it like this: we're all different. And we couldn't reach a conclusion and work together. So that's why I'm not in the band.
So the time of a common ground has gone in the 80s, maybe early 90s.
Yes, I think, and also, to be quite frank, I think I paid my dues in that band. I moved on, you know, I'm doing something else right now, and I'm perfectly happy with that. If
you compare the big concerts back then on your big international tours in the 80s, or maybe the Millennium gig at 99, 2000, and if you compare it to the audience you're playing for today, do you feel a difference in the audience?
That's a really good question. I mean, first of all, there's an age difference. Yeah, we've all gotten older. No, I mean, it's actually a really interesting question because not really. I mean, people that are really fans of rock and roll, hard rock, and melodic hard rock in general are just as enthusiastic as they were in the 80s, 90s. A little grayer, and maybe they bring their kids and even grandkids, which is just fine. The more the merrier. But the audience just as crazy. They love it just as much.
So I see you're having a good time also playing live at your festivals.
Yeah, yeah, we're doing really good right now. So it's
Cool.
amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about the future. You've been influencing a lot of people, Kee, and when we look at the younger guitar players, there are completely new styles, new techniques, new kinds of melodies coming up, however you call the styles now, the shredding, the whatever. Who are younger guitar players that you are observing, where you are following, and maybe also where you try to learn something from?
This is going to sound really horrible, but I'm useless at following new guitar players. I mean, I can stretch it to getting links from friends of mine, other guitar players. You check this guy out, and it's awesome. But I'm really so busy. I'm working all the time, on my new projects, and I really don't have time to explore new guitar players. It's horrible. I should. And there's a lot of interesting players out there, but I simply don't have the time.
Oh, maybe Rock Me Vienna will give you the time to talk also to the younger ones, because we have some of the younger ones as well in our roster. So maybe there you will have the time.
Oh, definitely. I went online and checked your website out, and it's a lot of interesting players. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Let's start with our host, Herman Lee.
Yeah, he's new to me, but I'm really interested to meet him.
Frank Gambale.
Oh, awesome player. He really made a difference with his techniques and way of playing. Great.
Andy Timmons.
Awesome. We met and played together. He's badass. Awesome guy.
Angel Vivaldi.
I've heard of him. Never really listened to him, but I heard he has got a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Neely Brosh.
That's a woman, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I read about her, but I haven't listened. I'm sorry. I think it's awesome that more women are starting to play the guitar.
Yeah.
I see it online, and that's actually, thank God we have all those tutorials online, because you can see a lot of women popping up playing the guitar really good. So looking forward to that.
What are you mostly looking forward when coming to Vienna, Kee?
Well, it's been a long time since I played in Vienna. It would be nice to stay for a couple of days and just check Vienna out. It's a beautiful city. What I'm looking forward generally is to meet all these other players and get together, because like I mentioned earlier, it's the meeting that teaches you stuff about different point of views in approaching guitar. And this was interesting because no guitar player has the same view about how to approach the instrument. So it's really interesting to check it out, how other people.
Why is it so important for guitar enthusiasts to check out their tickets for Rock Me Vienna?
Because also, like I mentioned earlier, it's the real thing. You get to see real music play live without. I'm not going to say that all guitar influencers online are editing their videos, because there's a lot of them that really just play live. But to see it live, to be in the same room as the magic is happening, it's a completely different thing. To hear the amplifier and the guitar player's fingers bending those strings, that's a different thing. You have to see it live.
Yeah, this is also what we want to encourage.
Yeah, this is also what we want to encourage. Getting people there, getting the feeling which you can never, ever transfer via any kind of online lessons.
Guys and girls, I know you're sitting there and you're wondering, should I buy some tickets to Rock Me Vienna? Of course you are. Go right now to rockmevienna.com. It's time to get real.